Well, this month marks 3 years since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, and women in the U.S. lost their constitutional right to an abortion. Following that ruling, a number of states have banned or severely limited access to abortions. Some women fear they could face repercussions, even if they miscarry, something our next guest says is a valid concern in West Virginia. Joining us now is Raleigh County Prosecuting Attorney Tom Truman. Thank you for coming on the show, Tom. So bottom line, are women in the state of West Virginia at risk of prosecution if they miscarry?
They might be. And I base that on a synthesis of a number of issues that started really about a decade ago. One thing that people need to be aware of is prosecutorial discretion. Prosecutors have a pretty wide range of what they can pursue as criminal charges. And I was at a break and overheard some of my colleagues, and what started as a discussion about unborn children being victims of crime turned into another avenue, which was very much anti-abortion. At the time, it didn't mean much to me because Roe was the law of the land, and I didn't think there was anything these people could do about it. But with the overturning of Roe, and there's a few statutes in West Virginia and a case that does cause me concern. One of which is the concealment of a deceased body. And there's an absolute defense to that if you report it to law enforcement within 48 hours of when you dispose of the body. Then you go to the definitions our legislature has provided over the years, and there's a very fine line between miscarriages and very young children. The case the Supreme Court decided involved a 3-week-old child that was born at a campground in a county north of here. They did not report it to police, but police tracked them down because they were on the run from Colorado.
Okay.
There was evidence the child was missing, and the Supreme Court said, no, you didn't affirmatively report that to police, so you are stuck with the conviction for that concealment charge.
So I'm going to get to a police question in just a second. I just want to make sure I just follow up with you specifically to better understand. So you say there could be a situation where a woman who miscarries in West Virginia could be prosecuted. Do you believe there is any scenario in which a woman who had a miscarriage deserves to be criminally charged?
I can think of none. We wouldn't do that. But again, prosecutorial discretion allows for some room to maneuver around those things. And even though I personally wouldn't do that, I can't say that that couldn't happen here. My message is that you need to be aware of your surroundings and the philosophy of the prosecutor in your jurisdiction.
So just to follow up on the police question, because you have said that you actually think it is important for a woman who miscarries to consider alerting police. We've spoken to some reproductive law experts who spoke against that, saying it could lead to an unwarranted investigation. I mean, could you give any assurances that a woman who had a miscarriage and alerted police wouldn't be investigated?
I can't. The only thing I was referring to was the safe harbor of the statute. If you report it in 48 hours affirmatively to law enforcement, then you can't be prosecuted for that. But I understand there's a bunch of downsides for all of this, including women not seeking medical care when they need it because they're worried about these consequences.
So you
But
mentioned
my message was to try and get people to be aware of what is around them. And you know, I'm certainly not soliciting to do this.
So you have mentioned in your prior interviews that a woman's emotional state or even comments she makes after could influence a prosecution. I mean, you know, miscarriage, which is considered common, is often a devastating occurrence for a woman emotionally and physically. It can lead to depression, anxiety, grief. Some may feel embarrassed or ashamed. Who is qualified to make the grand determination whether a woman has the proper emotional state after a miscarriage?
Yeah, I concur with that. I mean, to me, this is a matter that should not be pursued, but there are individual prosecutors who may look at it differently. Keep in mind, I'm in a profession where collectively we're only right 50% of the time.
Who are these individual prosecutors specifically, and how motivated are they to bring these cases?
I've been asked that. And here's the problem. This conversation took place at a break at a prosecuting attorney seminar over a decade ago. I have no idea who those people are, if they were assistants, if they were electeds, if they're still in office or still participating as prosecutors. I just don't know the answer to that. But I will say that there are probably people in West Virginia that would share their philosophical outlook on things. And that's a concern.
Can you give any more specifics? I mean, Roe v. Wade was overturned 2 years ago. I think a lot of people might be watching this and wondering, like, why are you talking about it this now? And you know, was it 3 years ago? It might have been 3 years ago. Why are you talking about this now? And like, people want to know, are there actually prosecutors in West Virginia who are going to bring these cases?
Well, not the ones we're talking about. I haven't heard anything about that, but about 40 miles south of where I am, there's a prosecution going on for involving fetal remains and a gentleman that ran over him with his car, is my understanding. Again, I'm not acquainted specifically with the facts of that, but that's what triggered the question to me, because I was available and was willing to talk about it.
So what is the legally proper way, in your view, for a woman to dispose of the remains after a miscarriage?
You know, that's a medical question. I don't really have a good legal answer. I was just trying to sound an alarm that there are people out there that are looking for opportunities. You know, the law changes when people push on it. And if that's your philosophical view, it would be an opportunity, given the case law and the statutes, to do so.
Right. But if it's a medical question, why would the law be involved then?
Well, isn't that constantly an issue? We do all sorts of things legally that really should be within the province of somebody else.
Right, but you know, a miscarriage, it's spontaneous, it's involuntary. You know, a woman has very little control over that, and this idea that she could be prosecuted for how she handles that is, I think, really alarming to a lot of women. Is the reason underpinning this to ensure women won't get an abortion illegally in West Virginia because of the strict abortion ban there? Is that your sense from these conversations?
That's a very good question for which I don't have an answer. There's been a steady march in the West Virginia legislature of tightening up abortion. You'll notice that since Roe was reversed, there was a call for a statewide referendum, which has been refused. I'm not sure why. If that's the view of the population, like they did in Ohio, why we couldn't do that here, I don't know.
So basically, you're sounding the alarm. You are concerned that there are prosecutors who are bringing these cases, but you can't give us any specifics on who that is. Tom Truman, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Well, I don't know if that was helpful or not, but I tried.
Well, we're gonna follow up with you and try to get some more specifics on who you were speaking to and that kind of thing, because I think that that's really important and sort of missing here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.